Good afternoon and welcome to our latest edition of A Bit of Light Relief. We're all giggling because honestly I've been a bit rubbish this afternoon. Apologies in advance. A Bit of Light Relief is here for our gorgeous HR community. We are wanting to give a little bit back to our HR world, give insights, provoke thought and bring a bit of light humour to the sofa to you all. And this afternoon we're actually breaking with a bit of tradition actually. We have invited one of our very own curvy people. And we'll give her a chance to introduce herself. But before we do, I'm Jeanette Ramsden, the CEO of the Curve Group. I haven't even mixed it up this week.
No,
Letty.
good work.
Jeanette.
Kelly York, the Chief Operations Officer at the Curve Group.
And Anna Clapton, Head of HR Consultancy at the Curve Group.
Oh, it's a trio of dreams.
We're not doing the gratuitous plugs this afternoon because I think the dinging would go on a bit too far, and actually we really don't want to sell to you at all this afternoon. Anna has been with us for over 12 years. I know she only looks 12, but she's very big heels. And we managed to get her in some makeup, and her high heels are actually fairly renowned.
They are. That's me.
Yeah.
That's why I park where I do.
Give us a flash, Anna. Go on.
Yeah.
We've got...
Very good. Anna, welcome to the
Thank you.
sofa.
Thanks for having me.
I'm loving being in the middle actually. I can lean back a bit,
It's
you
because
know.
of our outfits. We needed you in the middle.
Oh yeah. I didn't get the memo, did I? Of the navy and white. Oh dear.
We kept that a secret.
Anyway, rude. Well, I suppose we ought to talk about relevant things.
Yes.
I would like to know, Anna, what is going on in the HR consulting space at the moment?
Well, it's fair to say it's incredibly busy at the moment, which is great. I think trends that we are definitely seeing are CEOs are just not making decisions quick enough. There is a real drag in anything that's kind of happening, which is then having a knock-on effect with the workforce, absolutely.
And that, I suspect, is linked to the 5 monumental things that have been happening over the last 5 years. But
so if we take into account the COVID, Trump,
Brexit,
you know, anything that fits under that, wars, where we are at the moment, you know, literally anything at the moment is really, it's almost like the CEOs that I'm working with at the moment feel like they're working with one hand tied behind their back because they're just not making the decisions, and yet they are the decisions makers in the organisation, if that makes any sense. So we need them to make those decisions.
And where do you think the voice of reasoning is coming from?
I think, personally, for me, where I work really closely with a CEO without putting myself out there, it's probably me from an external voice of view going, absolutely, let's slow down, let's kind of take a look, you absolutely can do this. It is coming from some of the boards that the CEOs work alongside in our partner organisations. It's actually holding them back a little bit rather than supporters and the investors, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think where we best suit our services is we can support with that voice of reason because we're not so enclosed in it.
So do you have any stats on this, Kelly?
I have less stats. I think observations. I think
Disappointed.
it would be worth bringing back. You love my stats, don't you? Really, it's a secret, but she actually does love them. So we did a survey beginning of this year, the 2025 recruitment and HR survey, and we already started obtaining 2/3 of people were worried about cost efficiency versus still trying to control satisfaction and performance. So I think that was for our HR community. I think what's interesting is if you read the likes of CIPD and things like that, the pressure around cost is so hard on HR, which it's not always traditionally been, in fairness. But it's almost worse than it is for the leaders, other operational leaders in the business, because they're feeling the brunt of it. So I think it's less about stats, but more about, again, the conflicting demands are so difficult to handle. And actually, that's where we're being pulled in to support with almost kind of frameworking and working through what that plan of demands are.
For me, there just seems to be a lot of noise at the moment. So, I read from Total Jobs. I read from Total Jobs. Did you see what I did there? I read in Total Jobs that 67% of organisations can't find the skills that they want. And yet with AI, we're all being told that we're getting millions of applications in and that it's never been so buoyant for getting people in. I think there's a real... So sort of, and as a CEO, how do you sort of balance that off with what your HR people are telling you when you haven't got a vacancy filled that you need filling in order to grow your organisation, or even if it's just to replace somebody that's already left the organisation? I think there's this real conflict between what we're being told out in the marketplace and then, what is actually happening in organisations.
I agree with that. I think the biggest thing at the moment is what we're being fed through media actually isn't reality either. And actually we're dealing with people that feel like us, that like we're being told this, so why is it different for us in our organisation? And I think on the skills point, Jeanette, I think where we're certainly being called at the moment, Anna, and you are doing a lot of this work, is looking at like the skill within businesses to kind of the foundation. Do you want to extend on that a little bit?
So some of the work that we've been doing recently is actually taking an entire organisation and mapping every individual against something as simple as the 9-box talent grid, and actually going, well, where are our absolute solid contributors? Because every organisation needs those contributors to be able to run, to be able to operationally perform. But equally at the same time, looking at the rising stars and the top talent, and obviously in this market that we're in at the moment, no one wants to lose those people. So how do you invest in them? How do you kind of grow them? How do you keep them? And then sadly, you look at that, that bottom performance, and you look at those poor performers or those inconsistent performers, and it's, well, actually we'd love to kind of retain them and keep them, but only if it's being done in the right way. And that's where some of the learning and development side of it is coming into it as well. But it gives an organisation a fantastic cross-sector of everything that they've got.
I think also positively, people are investing in their leadership teams at the moment. There's a lot of leadership development. There's a lot of rising star development, which is a positive as well. I think people are still investing in the people that they want in the organisations for the future.
Yeah, have you got any examples of where we've sort of really helped an organisation with that side of things then? Yeah,
absolutely. We've worked with an organisation which is a finance services organisation who we did a lot of transformational change in. First of all, we did the right sizing of the organisation. Okay. So that was great.
Right sizing. What was that code for?
Redundancy.
Yep, there we go.
So we did that challenging right-sizing piece of work with the organisation. We then took it to the next level, and it was actually, well, if these are the people that I've got, what have I got? What is my workforce? And actually, we were able to give that CEO, for the first time ever, a complete, pure vision of his entire curve. But what he did do was bring his entire leadership team on the journey with him, and actually, they constantly kind of reviewed it. So when we done those foundations, actually on a monthly basis, it was, well, is this person still an underperformer? Then why are they still here and what we're doing? Actually, if we've got this solid contributor and we've moved them up to, a rising star, how are we going to keep them? What does their development look like? Which ultimately led to development and training.
And I think that's the point, is keeping it live, isn't it? So once we've done the consultancy, actually what we're finding more and more is we're spending more time in the businesses than almost making that BAU for them, because actually you can spend a lot of money on doing these projects, but if they don't become part of your day-to-day business strategy, then it doesn't work.
So why do you think more people are not doing that? Because that was a big undertaking. I mean, obviously I've got some insight on this now.
She's pretending she doesn't, but she does.
I'd be very poor at my job if I actually didn't know, but
I think one of the reasons they're not doing it is they don't see the value in it. And it's only after you've done the exercise, because obviously you're going to take up time with quite a few of their individuals and their management team. But it's only afterwards that they see the value that they've got, and they've got that pure picture of what's going on. And then that's where we come into our own and absolutely can do some recommendations and keep it alive.
I think the trouble is sometimes all people can see is cost.
Absolutely.
Time and cost.
Time and cost. And it's just at the moment, and I have got a lot of empathy for that, but given, I mean, one of the biggest impacts that we've seen in the UK for a long time is the national insurance costs, which are now starting to kick in. Everybody is concerned about costs. I think it's 98% of organisations that we surveyed that really technical word, surveyed, you know, they were sort of saying that they're really concerned about the change and the cost of that change and having to make cost savings. And yet the agenda's not going away, is it? It's not getting easier. Labour's bringing in all of these different employment rights for individuals, and you know, none of it's getting easier. You know, it's. I feel quite sorry for the HR teams that are having to go to their boards and saying, you know, we want you to invest X amount of thousands of pounds in order for this change to happen, and having to really give those business cases, because, you know, it's difficult when people are really only worried about their profits at the moment.
Exactly.
And I think that is the key piece, isn't it? I think also that a lot of the stuff, it doesn't need to be incredibly expensive either. There's ways of doing it where there's an influence around it.
Why are we not charging enough?
I think just not just from using an external consultancy firm, but also internally, there is ways of doing things like more pragmatically, and also sort of sharing the heavy lifting and various things like that. So there's lots of options around how things can be delivered. But if you don't start doing things now, you come far behind where your organisations are.
Are you seeing a lot of people freezing out there? Do you know what I mean? I don't mean cold. I mean, you know, genuinely.
So there's definitely some recruitment freezes going on. There's definitely some elements of, we've done this, we need to do this, we need to do this, but we're not doing it. You know, so they're doing the talk, but they're not doing the doing. If that makes any
that's
sense.
kind of the freezing I was really meaning. We could do this, we could do that.
Lots of exploration conversations about what they should be doing. I think we've become we're a sounding board at the moment where people need to talk something through. The market that we, you know, generally sit in, we've often got HR people that are either standalone or have one person in a smaller team.
What I worry about on that though is if the HR, and it's jolly easy for me to say, and I know it is, are not actually challenging the organisation to do things differently, and are fearful and freezing, which I'm on one hand really, really empathetic with, I think somebody else will.
Yeah.
I read that CTOs are wanting to take over, so Chief Technology Officers wanting to take over the running of the HR departments, because they believe that the technology can do all of the things that the HR team do. Sorry, can I just have a moment? But in principle, it was a very interesting article, and I can see where people are coming from. But I think if we don't start challenging our boards, and we do freeze, and we just do BAU as it's always been, particularly in SMEs, I do believe that you know, people will take over and do the challenging for them, and then it's something that happens to them rather than leading the way.
And I also think, just, you know, we're talking quite high level here, but what about all the people that do the doing? You know, how do you keep up their morale? How do you do all of that if you just don't kind of make those changes in line with everything else that's going on at the moment?
Well, yeah, and the motivation behind those teams, and and also, you know, the sort of the next generations that are coming in, they're going to be wanting to be part of a more modern, exciting organisation that is doing a lot of change activity, and so that they get familiar with that change activity and want to be a part of that. I guess is sort of a good.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing as well, there is, and just on that vein, there is a lot of discussion around employee value propositions at the moment.
Yeah.
So so I try again. Value propositions.
Talk to me about employee value propositions, Kelly.
I think that people are more aware that it's actually much harder now to create a good EVP that talks to multiple people. We're spending a lot of time actually working through what that actually means, because it doesn't just mean like traditionally what you give to a candidate. It's not that anymore. No. It's how you make them feel, where they feel they belong. It talks to different generations. So there's lots of things that's happening now. And again, if you're not focused on this at the moment, you are going to get left behind when the talent starts to become a bit more war in terms of what people are looking for. So,
and interestingly, what I'm finding is we've got more organisations doing surveys at the moment. So it's kind of been
validating,
just validating, and it's a great way of listening to what their employees are saying.
Yeah.
But like everything, it's only as good as what comes out of it and what you do with it.
Yeah. Interestingly, we had Ken Brotherston on the sofa with us recently, who is part of the talent partnership. And because he deals with an awful lot of global organisations, he was sort of very much saying about, how a lot of the talent teams are having to deal with, a lot of applications. I actually challenged him on that for the SME marketplace, because if you don't have an employee value proposition, you don't have a reputation, or a brand, actually attracting the very best talent actually can be far more difficult. And that bringing that exec search mentality to actually lower layers in your organisation, I feel is essential in order to be able to get the very best talent into organisations. And if you're not doing that, just placing an advert on LinkedIn saying we're looking for people is just not going to cut it in a medium-sized organisation. It's not attractive. You're not going to get the widest pool. You're not going to get the biggest thinkers. You're not going to get your workforce and skills that you need for your organisation to move forward through what is navigating a very difficult
You've got to weed the
marketplace.
talent out these days.
Absolutely. And then engage with them. And what was disappointing, I don't often use the word I'm very disappointed, is that the time to hire is going down and organisations are starting to really sit back on the laurels, taking longer to hire people. And as we all know, that just doesn't cut it in today's marketplace with the talent that we're trying to bring into organisations. I'm talking a lot. Mrs. Opinion.
And you stole some stats earlier, I noticed.
Did I?
Yeah. Because we put you in the middle.
Yeah. I'm going on the outside next time. Right, so what's the top tip you would give, right? And I am going to be quite sort of assertive on this. What would you... So you are the CPO of an organisation, and I don't mean procurement, I do mean people officer, or the HR director, navigating your way through a very challenging marketplace, and let's face it, they're taking on more and more and more. What advice would you give each?
I would definitely say to stay calm and communicate.
Ooh!
Absolutely.
When you say calm themselves or calm?
Calm. Just try and keep that calmness across the organisation, but you can only do that by the communication. Because people will go into panic.
That one. I wish I'd come up with that one. That was a good one.
People will go into panic mode if they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you can communicate those regular, whether it be a stop the floor, whether it be a town hall, however the organisation chooses to do it, there is something said.
Say it again. Say it again. Yeah. Actually, it was really good because I went to a conference recently and somebody was sort of saying, our job as leaders is to absolutely map out where we are, what we're doing, and how we're doing it.
Yeah,
so
and then review.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah, very good.
I think that's
what's your top tip then?
I think so. There's a lot of noise in business at the moment. Lots of noisy stuff.
Yeah, and all the stuff and everything.
It's then really easy to get bogged down into BAU and stuff that actually often isn't always very important. And I think proceeding with looking after your talent in a cautious but clever way is really critical. So don't not do it because it's difficult. Make sure you're focused, but do it cautiously.
And don't do the freeze. Yeah. I'm going to go, and I am a little bit like a broken record, and I'm not going to apologise for it though. For me, it's ask for help. Be it your network, be it from a friend, be it a colleague. I call it kite flying, but when you've got an idea, float it, run with it, and ask for help on it, because that way you will be far more successful. And just far too often in life, we just don't ask for help. And, there are...
It helps you make decisions as well if you've got some clarity.
And you know what? People do want to help. Human beings, generally in their nature, they do want to help. And so, I would sort of say it's not easy. Be kind to yourself, but do ask for help through that. So some good top tips there. So we know you've got a lot on going out there. A lot going on out there. That was a good dyslexic one, wasn't it? If I would word perfect, you'd be very disappointed, wouldn't you? Anyway, it's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for listening, as ever. Anna, thank you for joining us on the sofa. Yeah, thank you for the delicious lunch. And please, if you have any topics that you would like us to discuss, then please do get in touch with us. And we look forward to welcoming you again on the sofa in due course. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.